most divisive and disgusting speech that any president, certainly in my lifetime, has ever given. He essentially waged war on half of the country by saying that we are all a threat to democracy because we believe in putting America first. It's not radical to want to put your country and your own people first. It's not radical to want to have a strong border, a strong military, and to unleash the might of your own economy, not economies around the world. You know, we have seen cultural Marxism trickling its way through every institution in this country. The public school system, the higher education university system, Hollywood, big tech, the corrupt mainstream media that I fought against in President Trump's White House are indoctrinating my generation of Americans into hating our country, hating one another based on race and gender and all of this other BS.
The moment this story begins, it hooks you in because what unfolded on live television was something no one expected. It wasn't just another fiery exchange on a daytime talk show. It was the kind of clash that leaves networks shaken, executives scrambling, and audiences buzzing long after the cameras stop rolling. Karoline Leavitt, young, sharp, and unapologetically bold, went toe-to-toe with Joy Behar, a woman who for decades has thrived on stirring controversy on The View. What happened next didn't just rattle the panel, it set in motion a chain of events that could very well mark the beginning of the end for one of TV's most polarizing programs. The story doesn't start with a joke or a light jab. It starts with a speech that shook the nation. A president standing at a podium, painting half the country as a threat to democracy simply because they dared to put their nation first. Leavitt, never one to soften her words, called it the most divisive, even disgraceful, address she had ever heard. To her, it wasn't radical to want secure borders, a strong military, or a thriving economy. To her, wanting to protect your people before prioritizing others wasn't extremism, it was common sense. But in today's climate, those beliefs weren't just dismissed, they were attacked as dangerous. This is the backdrop for what unfolded on The View. Joy Behar, a fixture of daytime TV for decades, underestimated her. Known for her sharp tongue and dismissive tone, Joy tried to belittle Leavitt by reducing her career to nothing more than her appearance. On air, in front of millions, she insinuated that the only reason Leavitt had her role was because she was attractive enough to catch the eye of Donald Trump.
Something to behold. Here is her assessment of Trump's new White House press secretary, Karoline Leavitt.
I think she's probably been put in there because, according to Donald Trump, she's a 10. You know that's what it is.
I want to be clear, though, it's not her first job. It was her first press briefing. She worked in the previous Trump administration.
Here is Joy objectifying the White House press secretary, saying she only has the job because she's hot.
It was a line meant to sting, meant to humiliate, and meant to draw laughs. But instead, the studio fell into a stunned silence. Even her fellow panelists, usually quick to nod in agreement, looked visibly uncomfortable. It was the kind of low blow that exposed the hypocrisy of the very people who claim to champion women's empowerment. How could a show that constantly parades itself as the voice for strong, independent women reduce one of their guests to a punchline about her looks? The answer was clear. They didn't respect her because she didn't fit their narrative. Outside the studio, the reaction was explosive. Sky News contributor Kosha Gatteridge summed it up perfectly. Joy's comments weren't just rude, they were condescending in a way that revealed the hollow nature of her so-called progressive values.
Attacking a woman for her looks or age isn't very progressive. Let's bring in Sky News contributor Kosha Gatteridge. Kosha, particularly that last clip that we played, it was so condescending. The way that she was scolding her as if she was a schoolgirl, suggesting she needed to do her homework. I find it so hypocritical when these so-called, caring, progressive voices just turn so nasty like that.
Other commentators echoed the sentiment, noting that this wasn't the first time The View had targeted conservative women in this way. From Sarah Huckabee Sanders to Kellyanne Conway to Sarah Palin, there was a long track record of personal attacks disguised as debate.
Yes, and as you mentioned, with conservative women, there's a long list of that, both of Trump's previous press secretaries, females, Sarah Huckabee Sanders, Kayleigh McEnany, other figures like his campaign manager the first time, Kellyanne Conway, Sarah Palin very famously had to bear the brunt of a lot of this. So people are used to that. I think in their bubble of the audience that The View speaks to, that's probably kind of what the group think is. So one defense, I guess, is that she was speaking to her audience, but you take it outside of that bubble the way you are right now, and we all can see.
Leavitt, however, wasn't content to let the moment pass as just another insult. Instead of retreating, she went on the offensive. In interviews and statements afterward, she called out the hypocrisy directly, pointing out how The View loved to uplift women until those women held beliefs they didn't approve of. Then suddenly, those same women were mocked, belittled, and stripped of their accomplishments. This wasn't just a defense, it was a counterattack. Leavitt flipped the narrative and forced audiences to see the show for what it had become, a platform more interested in tearing down dissent than in fostering honest discussion. And the more she spoke, the more the backlash grew.
Voters do not agree with these despicable women on The View. They are wildly out of touch with the vast majority of Americans, and frankly, they should seek immediate help.
Social media lit up with outrage. Clips of the exchange spread like wildfire. Hashtags demanding accountability from The View began trending. And for once, even people who normally supported the show admitted Behar had gone too far. It wasn't just a conservative backlash. This time, liberals were chiming in too, embarrassed by the blatant double standard. And then came the move that no one saw coming. Leavitt escalated things from the court of public opinion to an actual court of law. She filed a defamation and character assassination lawsuit, accusing Behar of knowingly trying to damage her reputation with baseless personal attacks. This wasn't symbolic, this was real, and it had the power to cost ABC millions. Behind the scenes, panic spread like wildfire at the network. Executives who had long stood by Joy, no matter how controversial her comments were, suddenly faced with the possibility of losing sponsors, viewers, and credibility all at once. Advertisers began quietly expressing concern, questioning whether they wanted their brands tied to such a mess. Meetings stretched late into the night as ABC scrambled to figure out how to contain the fallout.
Saying, Rowan, I couldn't do that at 27. No nonsense, straight to the point, courage, detail.
Behar, meanwhile, didn't see it coming. For years, she had built her career on saying what others were too afraid to, protected by her status as one of ABC's untouchable stars. But this time was different. This time, the backlash was too widespread, the lawsuit too serious, and the outrage too loud. Soon, the unthinkable happened. ABC, the very network that had shielded Behar through scandal after scandal, decided she was no longer worth the risk. But rather than fire her outright, they engineered a quiet exit, presenting it as a retirement, a graceful step back after decades in the spotlight. The reality, though, was far harsher. Joy was pushed out.
That you saw live on this program yesterday. Joy Behar stirring the pot of controversy after saying this about Karoline.
She's probably been put in there because, according to Donald Trump, she's a 10. You know that's what it is.
Do you want to take this?
No, you cannot be attractive and smart. I will try to give Joy the benefit, and oh, thank you. I try to give Joy the benefit of the doubt that she didn't see that briefing, because if you saw that yesterday on numerous topics, no big binder, I think she might have had a different impression of this young woman who held her own.
The announcement sent shockwaves through the entertainment world. Supporters of Leavitt celebrated, seeing it as long overdue justice. Loyal fans of Behar, on the other hand, felt betrayed, accusing ABC of cowardice and demanding her reinstatement. The View's audience fractured overnight. Leavitt, far from backing down, only doubled down. She declared that this wasn't just about her, it was about every woman who had ever been demeaned or dismissed by a media culture that claimed to support them while quietly tearing them down. She framed Behar's removal not as a personal victory, but as a historic moment where hypocrisy had finally been held accountable. And yet, Behar's departure didn't solve ABC's problems. In many ways, it made them worse.
I mean, you would have to give her the benefit of the doubt that she did absolutely no research or reading about anything dealing with Karoline Leavitt before she made that remark. Because Karoline Leavitt she went to St. Ansel College, she worked for WMUR
Ran
TV.
for Congress?
In New Hampshire, she ran for Congress at the age of 25, put out a very good campaign.
The lawsuit remained active, the sponsors still uneasy, and now the show faced an uncertain future without the very personality that had fueled its drama for years. Former guests and insiders began to come forward, exposing what they described as a toxic culture behind the scenes, allegations of bullying, manipulation, and character assassination that stretched far beyond Joy Behar. Suddenly, the scandal wasn't just about one host's words, it was about the very foundation of The View. ABC found itself cornered, weighing impossible choices: fight the lawsuit and risk financial disaster, or settle and admit wrongdoing, risking their credibility even further.
She lost by 8 or 9 points, but she still put on a good campaign. Then she was the press secretary for the Trump campaign, going on TV literally every day.
Well, heavily pregnant and a new mom.
Pregnant. Yeah, she's a new mother. And then she goes out yesterday and gives and this, again, this is speaking very objectively, because I've watched every press secretary since going back to Marlon Fitzwater. Yeah, I'm that old. And she went out there for her very first briefing at the age of 27 years old, the youngest press secretary ever.
In a fiery interview that followed, Leavitt drove the point home. She made it clear that the fight wasn't over, that accountability had to extend beyond just removing one host. To her, this was about dismantling a culture of double standards and silencing tactics that had gone unchecked for too long. The final blow came when she bluntly declared that Joy Behar got exactly what she deserved. For years, Behar had been the face of a program that thrived on mocking its opponents, belittling conservative women, and hiding behind the shield of comedy and opinion. Now, that very culture had turned on itself, leaving her without the protection she had always assumed would last forever. And so, we are left with a program in freefall. The View, once a ratings powerhouse, now faces its most uncertain chapter. ABC's gamble, cutting ties with its most infamous host, may have been too little, too late. Sponsors are skittish, viewers divided, and lawsuits looming. Whether the show survives this or not, one truth has already been cemented: Karoline Leavitt, far from being diminished by Joy Behar's attack, has only grown stronger in its wake. The question now is not just whether The View can survive without Behar, it's whether ABC itself can recover from the chaos this scandal unleashed. Because if one thing has become clear, it's that even the loudest voices in media are not untouchable. Not anymore.